Okay, what we're going to do this for the next 3 weeks is work with virtualization. We've worked with virtualization for the last 2 years with using VMware Workstation. We haven't gotten real deep into it as far as how it functions, and we may get into a little bit more of VMware Workstation, but I do need to introduce you to the server side of things. What we're working with is we have a full operating system. In fact, I'll draw it on the board. It's, we'll have a Windows operating system over here, Windows 7, and then on top of that, we're running a virtual level or virtual layer, VMware Workstation specifically in this case. When we're doing that, we have all the resources of Windows sitting underneath here, and then we virtualize new hardware up here. So this is software, but it's virtualizing new hardware. And then on top of that, we're putting our different operating systems, which could be multiple operating systems. And then we put applications on top of that. So it's very, what it's built on. It's very nice and easy because the classrooms all have the operating system. Your laptops have them, your home computers have them. So we're just doing this part on top of here. The part we've been concentrating on now is, it's called the bare metal or the hypervisor, of bringing this whole thing down. And this virtual section down here now becomes its own operating system. And we eliminate the entire operating system as a whole, the Windows operating system as a whole. By the way, I just put Windows up here. If you run Linux, you can run VMware Workstation on top of basically Macintosh. It's called VMware Fusion. It's the same thing. Or on top of Ubuntu. It's also called VMware Workstation. But you have all this overhead under here. So you have all of its networking resources. You have all of its file sharing resources. You have its user accounts. You have Solitaire. You have everything sitting underneath your virtual world. And we're going to eliminate that. Yes?
One thing you mentioned, why is it Fusion for Mac? Is it the same company then?
Same company, same product.
They use name it different.
Because Macs are cooler. We have VMware Workstation. That sounds as boring as can be. Fusion, that just sounds cool. Very sophisticated. I don't know. It's a marketing thing. In fact, they're interchangeable. So if you build a workstation on VMware Fusion, you just do a file open on your VMware Workstation and it opens it, and vice versa. Same company, same developers, same everything. Yep. I don't know why they call it that. Yes. The Mac development team is just a sort of special group. They're always different. So, anyway, so what we're going to do is sort of eliminate this, and this virtual software that we're doing will now become its own operating system, and it's going to sit down here. So it's going to provide the virtualization as well as the fundamental operating system. Instead of requiring like 2 gigs of RAM, it'll require a couple hundred K of RAM. Instead of taking up 4 gigs of disk space, it takes up, I don't know, a couple hundred meg of disk space. So it's significantly smaller. And now when you run your operating systems on top of here, it's just, if these are your system resources, if this is how much hard drive, memory, whatever, if you think of the resources as everything that you use, and I have the same things if I'm comparing apples to apples, I've just gained this to put over here on the operating system side. So, yes?
With this, what you're going to show us is that you're still able to use Alt-Tab to your desktop, use your computer.
That is one major difference, is here you're running the virtual machine within Windows. This you're running just on top of here, which doesn't have an interface. So this is the true server type stuff where we get to things where you install it, it sits in the back corner, and you remotely administer it. So you can't walk up to it and look at the screen. You can't walk up to it and get to here, where over here you can. It's still very portable in that regard. So I can take this virtual machine and put it on a different computer, and take this virtual machine and put it on a different computer. I can do the same thing over here, so I have another virtual machine over there. I can take it and move it over there. So it's portable that way, and that's kind of the beauty of some of this stuff, which I'm hoping to get into, is that with this type of system, you can actually move this from this physical machine right here to this physical machine while this is running. So, you know, say you have a Windows server sitting here and you want to do some physical maintenance on here, maybe upgrade the RAM or you add another NIC or whatever, you can take these while they're running, move them over to another machine, take the physical machine down, do your upgrades, maintenance, whatever you need to do, bring it back up, move them all back over, and there's no downtime at all. So really, really cool features. It's a little bit more advanced. I'm hoping to get there. We need to put other things in place before that, you know, because there's some management systems in there that we need to apply and work with. That's sort of the idea. Another nice features, and again, I'm just showing you advanced things because that's like where the cool, really cool stuff is under, there's some disaster recovery or disaster planning type things that this is sort of a standby. So if something did physically happen to this machine, like say I took a sledgehammer and hit it by mistake and it accidentally broke everything inside of it, this machine is all prepared to pick up and say, you know what, that server went down, let me bring it up over here. And so it's going to automatically start up all those services all over again. Now that's one level. Another level is, which is a cooler level, is that it's running already on this in the background. And so if this ever went down for any reason whatsoever, this picks up exactly where the other one was. And we did this, you know, just playing with this kind of stuff. You know, we had a box, I don't know if it was a Windows 7 or a server, to make a difference. We were pinging it from just a regular room computer. We were pinging it, and we turned it off. We just unplugged the power cord, pulled the whole thing down. It automatically got rerouted to there, and we lost one ping in the whole process. But it was just staying up and running the whole time. So, you know, on a web server, file server, that would be very insignificant. You know, you wouldn't even notice it's been down. It takes more resources and stuff like that, and a little bit more management things, but that's kind of where I'm hoping to introduce stuff. I need to introduce this to you anyway because industry does use virtualization all the time. When we work with VMware Workstation, we're thinking more of the support side of things. Boy, I need a virtual machine of what like the accounting department has so I can see what they're doing. Or, you know what, we still have people out there running Windows 98. I want a virtual machine so I can see what Windows 98 looks like. Because I'm supposed to be supporting this. That's a different level. You're also going to be, being in networking, you will be running into virtualization somewhere. VMware ESXi is the product, is the operating system that's actually running there, is by far the most popular right now. Windows is coming around with their hypervisor, and we'll see, you know, where that comes with market share or whatever. But I'll be introducing you mainly to the VMware ESXi over the next several weeks. So does that make sense so far? Questions on any of this? The question was, you know, how hard is it to virtualize 4 machines onto one physical machine? You're doing it right now. Well, almost. You would do 3 machines in Windows Server. We have 2 servers running and a client running. You know, so that's 3 virtual machines on a physical machine right now. You know, adding a 4th one would be super easy as well. So it's very, very easy.
How about, like, for example,
the expenses for actually installing it, I mean, other than buying the new boxes, would still be exactly the same. You still have the same licensing. You still have to license the products the same. The operating systems still need their own key. You can't say like, well, you know, if I'm running 4 Windows servers on this virtual machine, that's only 1 box, so I only need 1 license for that box. Each virtual machine needs its own licensing and all the products within there. So the cost savings in the hardware, not on the software side. Same thing for implementation. You're implementing the same people hours, whether I'm building a physical machine or building a virtual machine. I'm still going through and installing it, configuring it. So it might be a little bit faster in a virtual machine, but you know, it's still the same process of configuring and doing things. And in fact, a lot of times people are doing management of systems like that, don't even know or care what it's on. So if I am doing administration, user administration, let's say eDirectory, Active Directory administration, doesn't matter if that's a physical box down the hall or a virtual machine, doesn't make any difference at all. I do the exact same thing, same process, same amount of time. It's just sort of the back end that makes a difference. You talk about if those updates happen automatically. Depends how it's configured. Right out of the box, you only build it on one. It's sort of like right now we're building an operating system on a virtual machine. And that's what you've done all the way through the last 2 years is I'm putting a Windows 7 virtual machine on this computer. I can move it around wherever I want, and that's it. And then you had your own personal backup. So I'm backing it up onto another drive, so you get to really manage that. This doesn't get until later on when we work with the disaster recovery type things. A little more advanced stuff again, but we're hoping to get there. If you have that in place and you have a little checkbox that says that's what we're doing, it automatically keeps everything in sync. So as things are happening here, technically what happens is the files are on another storage device. So all that's happening on here is working with the processing. So the processing is going to get switched from here to there. All the data files stay there. So it's not syncing per se because there is only one source of it. It's just the network is monitoring it, and that's actually really the third device then. It's monitoring. Let's get rid of that. It's monitoring and saying, you know what, that's not available anymore. Why don't you pick up, start a process, pick it up, and start running it. But all those data changes and everything that happened on this storage is still right there. So ultimately, this is what we're going to want to build is right here is, having multiple virtual servers, ESXi servers, having this shared storage, and then having this management console. We're not going to do that all today. What we're going to do today is concentrate right here. I think there's enough stuff to learn the basics of building it, creating virtual machines, managing a single server. We're going to keep it very, very simple. So don't think we're getting into all that stuff today as saying, well, when do we get to the fun stuff? Later. We got to do the very, very basic stuff. That's a very neat, interesting piece in itself. One is it can be software that runs on a server, a Windows server. It can also be what's called an appliance. And when you work in the virtual world, there's more and more appliances, which are a specific purpose device. And it's sort of a pre-packaged type thing. We'll probably be using that one, which in fact could be a piece of hardware. You could go and buy that, and then it's built into the hardware stuff. Or it's a virtual appliance in that you get the built box, essentially, as a virtual machine, put it on your virtual environment, and just run it. And it does what it's supposed to do. Now you have to configure it. It's kind of like your home router. You have to configure it and do things with it, but it's its own specific box to do that. So, and that was some of the stuff that we had to download last week. So hopefully everybody has those files and put them on some kind of portable drive. If not, I'll show you through the process as well.
With that,
Now that I talked about all this, about the advantages of having like such things as VMware ESXi running just as its own little tiny operating system on there, we're not going to do that necessarily because I don't want to wipe out all these hard drives in the classroom just so you get the experience of running it on bare metal. So we're going to take this entire environment right here and shift it up there. If that's going to make any sense. So we're going to use our Windows 7 computers running VMware Workstation. And in VMware Workstation, we're going to create an ESXi server, making it look like it's running right on hardware. We're going to virtualize within virtualization? Yes, we are. And then we're going to put an operating system on a virtual server running inside VMware Workstation on top of Windows 7. The performance is not going to be great. We have really good machines, good throughput, but there's just a lot of layers of translations of virtualization. Plus, just each of these themselves take up all the resources. You know, Windows 7 takes 2 gigs. The VMware Workstation is going to want its chunk to run. ESXi is going to want its chunk, and then the operating system on top of that's going to want its chunk. So, but that's going to be the biggest thing that I'm afraid is going to be the troublesome part, is not being able to really conceptualize this. You got to think of this as a piece of hardware sitting all by itself, running on bare metal. And maybe we'll pull out some old computers or something out of the back room and actually let you do that to, again, really, really ingrain that thought. But it's just, swiping out all these hard drives and trying to get them all back again, So we'll see. It may be valuable, but at least giving you the tools and the administrative knowledge of how to access it, though, is being very, very important. So are we okay with that? Licensing. Yes, ESXi is very expensive. And you license it for all kinds. You actually license it by the feature. We're going to look at some of the features, what kinds of things you can do and can't do. They do have a free version. It's called ESXi Hypervisor. Completely free. It doesn't cost anything at all, but you're very limited. Some of the things that we just talked about as far as the disaster recovery type thing, it doesn't have. And then you end up paying more. And your licenses is based on specific features, such as how many cores of processors will it handle, how much RAM will it handle, how much, all those other VM type features as far as what can you do. It's called vMotion, whatever. So it can be expensive. The trade-off, though, even in the industry are saying it's definitely worth the expense in software to give us the ability to be flexible, and not only just flexible in the virtual world, but just even the whole disaster stuff that we talked about isn't even possible in physical. What is, except extremely expensive, because now you're buying 2-3 physical machines and having lots of very expensive software that's going to manage all that. They've had clustering for servers for a long time, but very, very, very expensive because you're having tons of hardware. Here, we're getting rid of that tons of hardware and letting software take care of it. So for a business stance, it's definitely going to make sense. The part we're going to be installing is actually the full version. So we're going to have everything available to us. It's kind of like Windows Server, Windows 7, that we get an evaluation period. I don't know, I forgot if it's 30 or 60 days or whatever like that. But we're going to make it for the semester. So you have all the features that you can do. If you want the hypervisor one to play with this at home, you can get the product key free from VMware. You can just sign up. I want the hypervisor. It's sort of like checking out, like buying it, but there's nothing to buy, and then they give you your own key, so you'll have your own hypervisor key. It doesn't expire ever, so you can run it forever. So I run this at home. I do have a couple of virtual machines, 2 or 3 or something like that, running on just a box, bare metal, so it's just running ESXi with my virtual machines on top of it, running hypervisor. So I don't have the the recovery type stuff, but for a home environment, I'm not looking at that kind of stuff at this point. Excellent question. So to start off with things, we're going to create a new virtual machine. So I'm going to click New Virtual Machine, which, by the way, if you do have a USB 3.0 drive laying around at home, you may want to copy the VMs that we're working on today over to that and then bring that in next week, because you will see some performance increase because of just the drive access. I'm going to do a custom, and we're going to choose most defaults, but just going to go through that whole process. And then click Next. VMware Workstation 9, you can see that it's compatible with VMware Fusion 5.0. So it's, those are the same products when you asked about that before. And I click Next, and I do want to install the operating system later. I just prefer that. The easy install is really, really cool. Play with that or whatever sometime, but I like having it as real as possible because there's no easy install on hardware. So if you were going to install the ESXi server, it's definitely going to be on physical hardware. You would never ever install this in a virtual world, by the way. The ESXi goes on hardware. That's what it is. So it is the base of whatever physical machine you're putting out there. Everything virtual sits on top of that. So for playing, you put it in a virtual world, but other than that, you would never do this in production. Click Next and says, what do you want to do? I want to do VMware ESX. And we'll be doing ESXi version 5, which is the latest version, and technically it's 5.1, is what we'll be playing with today. Clicking Next on here. This is very, very important, as always, where you put this thing. So I'm going to browse for this, and I'm going to put it on my data drive, and I have a virtual machines folder, network apps, and I already have an ESXi-1, so I'm going to make an ESXi-2. So I'm going to create a new ESXi. I'm going to go through this kind of quickly just to get through the installation process, so you might want to just take notes. If you get caught behind, just follow the notes then. Just because some of the installation processes, it's going to go faster on my machine than yours may, so don't get real caught up on trying to keep up. You'll have time to work on this. What am I going to name this? I just like matching them. ESXi-2. Number of processors, knowing that, now again, all that this is doing is recommending things to you. You do not have to change the name. No, I like keeping them the same though, so that my folder matches my machine name. So when I look at the machine name, it's just like I know exactly what server it is. Otherwise, you're like Windows Server 2008. Well, they're all called Windows Server 2008. Which folder did I put that in? Was it Server 1, Server 2, Server 3? So that's just a personal thing. Knowing it's an ESXi server, it's going to say, you know what, you probably want to use a couple processors. In fact, you can up that. You can go up to 8, and in fact, your machine, you can go up to 16. Realize, though, that you'll have to actually have these wherever you move these to. So if you decide to do this at home, you have to make sure that you have enough processors, or at least enough cores to be able to do this. So let's leave this as 2 for right now. It seemed to work pretty well, but you can put more processors on there. Clicking Next, how much memory that this virtual machine, so it actually wants to use 2 gigs of RAM for this, and that's what we're going to choose. So if you don't have 2 gig, just click on the 2 GB. So that's just the administrative side of the server itself. So we're going to take 2 gigs of RAM, and we're going to use a bridge connection or a NAT connection. We're in fact going to be using, oh, you know what, I'm sorry, back up. This is going to be the whole physical memory of the virtual machine that we're working with. So again, we're building this virtual machine. I was thinking of just the operating system. That's not the case. So correction on that, I apologize. This is, you're building a whole new machine. On that virtual machine, you want to put other virtual machines like Windows and server and that kind of stuff. It's kind of like building out the room computers. The more memory that you give it, the more virtual machines you can put on it, because that's actually a limiting factor is RAM. RAM is the only thing that you can't really share very well. We can share processors, we can share hard drives, we can do that kind of stuff. RAM is pretty much allocated. You want 2 gigs, here's your 2 gigs, here's your gig, here's your 2 gigs. That's 5 gigs. There isn't any shortcomings on that. So this is an actual machine that we want to have room to put things on. So I'm going to update this to 8 gigs of RAM. It's going to want a couple hundred meg for the operating system, and that gives us 8 gigs for operating systems on top of that. So like Windows, Windows Server, or whatever. So, Todd.
Now, if you give it 8 gigs, well, and I'm looking over fine on your machines here, but if you take it home and you're so.
Yeah, when you turn off your virtual machine, you can always change the amount of memory on it. So you're right. So if you only have 8 gigs at home, you would not be able to set this as 8 gigs. You might be able to get away with 6, but you probably want to go to 4 or something. Now you actually have more memory in your computers than this computer, so this might even recommend a higher, like maybe 10 or 12 or something that you could go maximum up to. Let's just choose 8. It's kind of the middle road. So again, at this point, all we're doing is building. Think of it, I'm going to the store and building a server. So I'm going to put 2 processors in it. I'm going to have 8 gigs of RAM in it. So that's kind of where we're at. I want a bridge connection. I want this right on the network. The reason for this is that hopefully we'll be able to share things. We're not going to put all this stuff onto a single machine, but hopefully we can start pooling some of these things together. So maybe your virtual machine, I could manage yours, and we could do different things in different ways. So we're basically making one large network that we can all see and share different things on there. So using bridge networking, and click next, next. Create a new virtual disk, and SCSI, it's recommended, and it says 40 gigabytes. Now again, this is a machine that you're building to put other virtual machines on. So we put 2 processors in this physical machine. We gave it 8 gigs of RAM. 40 gig is going to get us by with putting an operating system on there and stuff, but it's not going to be enough to put a lot of virtual machines out there, because every virtual machine, now we're not doing that shared storage yet, we're just doing all of our storage here. It's sort of like, I need a Windows Server virtual machine, that's 5 gigs. I want a Windows 7, that's 4 gigs or whatever it's going to be. So I need the physical space on the server to put this stuff. So we're going to make this 100 gigs. It's a little limited, but we should be able to get through most of the stuff we're working with. And don't get completely freaked about it, because the size does grow as needed. It's not going to take up 100 gigs of your disk space at this moment. It's going to take up a couple hundred megs and then grow as we add things to it. So again, we're just building this machine. Yes? All this is going to be on your portable hard drive, so it has nothing to do with your local computer at that point. So now if your portable hard drive, your external USB hard drive is running out of disk space, well, that's a different issue. Then you'll have to get another one. And if you do, you probably want to buy a USB 3.0. Next semester, we're making everybody buy a USB 3.0. Okay, you can store as a single file or multiple files. It doesn't make any difference. That's completely up to you. I don't know. I'll just do the default this time. I switch back and forth. The name of the file is fine, and we click Finish. So I just built this machine. Now, this is the hardest leap at this point. Think of this as a physical machine. Think of this as a computer on your desktop, not as a window within Windows 7. So I'm going to open up my disk tray. I click on my CD DVD drive, and I'm going to insert the CD, the ESXi CD. So I browse for that. Wrong place again. Classes, network apps, ESXi. And it's called VM Visor. Where do you find that? We downloaded it last week. Okay. To get that, if you go to Windows Explorer, and if you click on the little network thing on the bottom, hopefully under computers, not under storage, don't click under storage, but hopefully on the computer part, you should get a NAS device eventually. And if it takes too long, you can just go to //NAS-80-17-86, which is just a very random name. I really should rename that so it's meaningful. But if you go to that, you should come up with 3 folders: backup, class, and media. Correct. Are you on the school's network?
Yes, on your
Wi-Fi, my Wi-Fi. You can also, if you really wanted to, you can plug into the network connection on the table there. That gives you 100 gigabits. 80 NAS-80-17-86. And you're on the L119 one? Oh, you can't access from there either? They look the same, don't they? Well, you should be able to get into NAS 80-17-86, and then under class, And then I threw them in there in files needed for today. Which you don't need them all anymore. I'll delete this one because we did that last week. And 9-night we don't need. What's that? Do not install it from here. No. Excellent point. Do not point to this image on the server. Yeah, exactly. Now, if you look at this is disk image file. It's the VM Visor installer. The entire operating system is 300 meg, which does the virtualization and the operating system and the remote access and everything. 300 meg for entire operating system. So
what file do we need?
we need the VMware VM Visor installer. Yeah, do not install from there. Make sure you're copying this to your portable hard drive.
It's on my portable hard drive.
You don't have to, necessarily follow along. Let me just show you the next couple of steps, and then if you have to copy and then catch up, that's perfectly fine. But the install is actually pretty simple overall. So once you have this, you click, the ISO image, and you click OK. So now it's in there, and so now I'm booting this machine, and I'm going to put it in full screen mode so it looks like a piece of hardware that I'm working on. Like I'm just booting it. Here it's booting to the BIOS. And now it comes up with the screen. So my options are to do the standard install or boot from the local disk. Well, of course, I want to install it.
So just the standard install.
Yeah, and it's going to happen automatically. Automatic boot, and up on top it says loading the ESXi installer.
Wow. That's amazing.
Not many options during the install process when we get through this.
Did that automatically start once you selected it?
Yeah.
That's what I was asking. If you had to call around the machine or get on my.
Oh, at the part of the machine on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. I thought you said, does it happen automatically? No, you did the part of the machine on. So again, you have to think of this, keep thinking of this as physical, 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 physical. I put the CD in the drive, and now I'm putting the power up button on. I know it's a little awkward that way. How can you put the drive in without the power on? Just go with it, So.
Before you hold it on or after this is all done?
We definitely want to take a snapshot after it's installed. There really would be no advantage of taking a snapshot before you install an operating system. Well, you could. You definitely could. You'd have your hardware built for you. And it would have kept your 2 gigs of RAM and your 100 gig hard drive. And so if you completely messed up your operating system, you could go back to that empty hard drive state. But, you certainly could. There's no reason for not doing it. But there really wouldn't really be a need, because all I'm really choosing is bridge network, my hard drive size, my processor, and hard drive, processor, RAM. Thank you. I know there's another thing.
If you want to use it at home and here, then you can just switch back and forth from that three things.
All that would be is taking a snapshot of your hardware before you put the operating system on, which you certainly could do. Definitely we would take a snapshot of this as soon as it's up and running before we do anything with it. And you just kind of sit. I mean, you don't even do anything with it. It just sort of does its own thing. Uh-oh. That didn't look good. I don't know what that did. What did it say?
Press enter to continue.
Okay, that's what we'll do. Installs on most systems, but only systems compatible guide. They are very, very specific of what this runs on top of. They do have a hardware compatibility list. If you think of the stuff that it's doing hardware-wise on a virtual machine, it's amazing. And so it's not just like Windows where you can throw it on pretty much anything. If it has a processor, it runs. This is very specific. I need this type of processor. I need the biggest thing is this type of NIC. It needs to support a specific types of NICs. because there's so much processing going on, especially when we work with the vCenter and trying to manage things. It needs to know what it's doing. So, okay, I'm accepting the license agreement, which is F11. Select the disk to install. I only have one partition. You can see that it's a 100 gig partition, and that's where I want to do it. So I hit enter to continue. Everything's US default for the next, screens. And now it's asking for a root password. And we're going to keep it simple. Password. All it has to be is at least 7 characters long. It does not have to be uppercase, lowercase numbers, or whatever. Feel free to enter anything that you want in here. If you forget what it is, you're on your own. I'll say, did you enter password? And you hit enter for password. I'm going to pause this for a minute. So the next step is confirm install. When you eventually get to here, hit F11 to install. I have to click in there first. You guys have faster machines. You have nicer machines. You have more memory,
Yeah.
better
Today,
processor.
It's not consistent. Usually this thing is not moving.
Are you in a 3.0?
Yeah.
Ah.
I always
Did you always plug in the back
I
though?
always plug in the back.
Do you really?
Yeah.
What's nice about those ports that are going to be on top now, though, is that even if you have a regular drive, you can plug in your drives up on top now instead of having them down the bottom and being kicked. And I don't know how many times I've kicked people's drives. I don't think I've unplugged anybody's, but it's been scary at moments.
I've stepped on mine, kicked mine, it rolled over.
So all having it up on the desk is nicer, neater, cleaner, more accessible.
She's a little scratched up, but she still looks pretty.
And eventually you get to this screen. It says installation complete. ESXi 5.1.0 has been successfully installed. Evaluation mode for 60 days, which means that you'll have all the features. If you want to keep all the features, you have to buy it. Can be expensive. Otherwise, you can switch over to the hypervisor, their product key, and it just gives you the base. Lets you run as many virtual machines as you want. But there's some limitations. Remove the installation disk before rebooting, and then reboot. So if I'm going to do that, if I'm going to remove the installation, I can do a Control-Alt to get rid of my screen, my mouse here. Go up to VM, Settings, click on my CD. Now I'll just flip it back to the physical. That's essentially the same as removing my CD from there. And I click OK. And now inside of here, I hit enter to reboot. The server will shut down and reboot. The process will take a short time to complete. It takes a little bit to do all that. Just gonna wait. It doesn't make a difference. If you forget to leave it in there, it's gonna be perfectly fine. It's not gonna hurt anything. Automatically boot in 3 seconds, otherwise you can hit enter to bypass that. It tells me my information up on top here. I have 2 gigs of memory. It just takes my physical processor. It's a Core i7, 8 gigs of RAM, and it just launches this. We're seeing the physical server operating system being called ESXi. What's really confusing is you're going to see other references to vSphere. vSphere is the suite of products that can run on top of this, but the way they label things, it's going to be very, very confusing between ESXi, vSphere, whatever. So if you do see those comments, they can be somewhat interchangeable. When it boots up, we are telling it to be a bridge network connection. We did not give it an IP address, so it's going to be getting a DHCP address. And so right now, it's going to show what that address is. It's 170. Mine is 172.16.193.47. It tells us by DHCP. So that you want to keep track of. So you want to write that down somewhere, and after break, you're going to need that in order to administer it. This is, no, not the static one, the DHCP one. The IP version 4. The other one's IP version 6. So the 170, mine is 172.16.183. All of yours should be 172.16. The third and fourth octets can and will be different than mine.
So do we need?
You will need that IP address. Once you get to this point, if you're trying to catch up or whatever, once you get to this point, you can take a break. By the way, your screen will automatically dim. It's built into like a power saving thing. That's why it just went from that orange or the yellow or whatever. If you hit any key getting back into it, it brings it back up, but it automatically dims the screen after a while. So if you ever freak out looking at your screen like what happened, that is normal. That it will. What's that? Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. So once you get to this screen, you can take a break. What I'm going to do real quick now, though, is this would in fact be a really good time to... Sure. This would be a good time to take a snapshot if you weren't going to do anything else. This will start showing some of the management things as well. In the lower left-hand corner, it says F2 for customize. We'll take a look at that later on. For right now, if it hit F12, though, for shutdown and restart, hit F12. And you do need to have the login name and password. The login name of root is automatically created. It's just like on Windows Server 2008, administrator is automatically created. We also have a user called root. You can change that later on. Any guess what the password is?
George?
It is password, at least if you followed my recommendations. And then you just hit enter. And now you come up with another screen. Remote management software is recommended to safely shut down. So they're saying you really should do this remotely. You shouldn't do this from the console. Well, we're not that far yet, so we're just going to do it with the console. You can either shut it down or restart it. So F2 is going to shut it down. F11 is just to restart if you want to restart it. I do want to fully shut it down, though, so I'm going to hit F2.
I did F11. Just never put that. I'm like, no, don't restart.
Because we want it down when we take a snapshot of it.
So you didn't do F12?
I
hit F12.
Right.
Hit tab. 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 Yeah. Password. Yeah. You at least hit the wrong button.
And the shutdown in progress takes a while.
The worst that could happen is you have to reinstall.
This does work better on hardware. We're putting it on top of a whole another virtual environment, so again, think of this as a separate box. It should. It should. Because it's a regular VMX file. In fact, I'm going to take a snapshot first. VM, snapshot, take snapshot, and I'll call it a base image. So before I even do anything with this, let me just take a look at my virtual machine here. And I've completely lost my mouse. Here it is. So virtual machines, administration, ESX2. So right now, the entire operating system is taking up 360 megs of disk space. So that's pretty impressive for a operating system. Once you've taken the snapshot, power back on. Let's see how long it takes to actually power on.
It doesn't take long. Plus 5 seconds.
I guess it goes save 5 seconds by hitting enter.
You were paying attention.
Too busy watching the clock. You can install VMware ESXi on a thumb drive, and you can boot to it. The advantage of that is that you can have the entire operating system, hard drive, and everything allocated to your virtual machines or whatever. But some people do that actually in production, the real world production. So the operating system's running off a thumb drive.
Thumb drives technically die a lot faster.
There isn't a lot of accessing of the operating system itself. Once it's loading, it's taking all that stuff and putting it into RAM, and it's running the operating system out of RAM. So it's not a constant read, write, and read, write, read, write. I got an IP address, and that took just over a minute and a half, so that's not terrible. Always note your IP address. This is a DHCP environment. It could in fact change. So do mark it down. Make sure mine happens to be the same. You do get at least, so likelihood of you getting back the same IP address at least the same day is very, very high, but don't count on that. Is everybody's server back up? Still shutting down? Okay. I will wait. I'm just going to show this to you. You do not have to do this, but in the lower left-hand corner, you do have the F2 for customize or view the system logs. That is something that you could do right from the console, because again, this is a physical machine. So in fact, we have this running in the back room right now. If you walked up to the machine, this is what you see. And we're running virtual machines on it, but you can't access the virtual machines through this screen. What things you can do, though, if I hit F2, it wants me to log in again, and it's root and password. You have to wait. There's a couple things you can do. One thing is configure the password, so you could change the password if you wanted to. The management network, which is my IP address. Right now it's a DHCP. Through it, I could configure it to be a static address. So again, right from the console, you can set the IP address things and other network resources. Configuring the keyboard, you can view system logs. The very, very minimal things that you'd expect that you want to be able to do, such as changing passwords and changing network addressing, is what you can do from here. And this is it. So even if I was running 20 virtual machines on here right now, I can't see them or manage them. There's no screens or anything. This is all that it is. And when you are working with these things, it is usually a headless station. So I hit escape, by the way, to get back out to the main screen. It now just sits in the corner by itself, and then you do everything remotely managing to that. I'm going to show you a couple other things. If you're still catching up, that's fine. It says download the tools to manage this host from this IP address. So there's a web server built into it. So if I'm going to go do that, let me make this a little bit smaller here. It says go to manage it, going to http://172.16.193.47. I don't have a certificate for there. I'm going to proceed anyway. And this is now the web interface to it. At this point, you have a couple things you can do. It talks about downloading the virtual appliance. There's an installer for remote command line. There's the vCenter, vSphere documentation. Up here, the most important thing, though, is if you need to access this host remotely, use the following programs to install the vSphere client. And you can download it from here. So it's kind of weird. You're actually downloading it from a virtual server sitting on your desktop. But you could download it. The version that's on here is a little bit more dated. Out on VMware's site, they give you a newer version, and that's one of the files that I gave you. Let's see, let's go over here. That file that I gave you is one of those download me or files needed for today. It's called VMware VI Client 5.1. The other one on here is also 5.1, but the sub part after that's a little bit older. So this is the latest version that I gave you. This is what you need to administer it and configure it so you can download and use it and install it. Now, because you have Drive Shield on here, Smart Shield on here, you're not able to, if you installed it, it'd just go away and get installed it, go away, go whatever. That's why last week we installed it on all the computers, so it's already pre-installed for you. The thing is that you will need to install the client on any other client you'll need it on. So if you're going to take this home, you're going to need to install the client, the vSphere client, in order to access your server. You could have your server running all day long, but you can't access it without the client. So in fact, right now I'm just going to minimize my server, just as if I was putting in the back room somewhere. And I'm going to launch my client, my vSphere client. And it looks like this. And I'll let you get caught up in just a minute and ask for your IP address. And that's where running it down will be very helpful. 172.16.193.47. Username would be root. And the password is password. Another certificate warning. I'm going to ignore it. Yes. Now notice it says, hey, you know what? That server I just connected to, it's using an evaluation license and you have 60 days left. And it's going to count down every day. It's going to count, just to say, hey, you have 50 days left, you have 39 days left, and so on. Now, again, try to keep this straight in your head. The virtual machine, the ESXi server you built, think of it as a physical machine. And it's sitting over in the corner somewhere now, and now you're using your computer in front of you now just as any client in the world. So right now what I could be doing, if I want to connect to a server, I could connect to any of your servers as well. We're all on the same network. It's just a remote connection to any server. Please make sure you're connecting to your server. If you had an IP address and you just typed it in just blindly, you could in fact be manipulating somebody else's server, their ESXi server. So please be very, very careful which server you are connecting to, especially since everybody's password is password. So and I'll let everybody catch up to this point now. This is not anything you have to follow along, well, watch and follow along, but this is not anything that you have to do. It's just going to be an overview of some of the features of the client and where things are. So don't feel you have to do this. Again, this is going to be everything that this program now is going to be doing, everything remotely controlling and administering this server. This server is, we do not interact with this server as a server. It's just a box sitting in the corner. So the more you get that into your mind, this is a box sitting in the corner, the easier it's going to be. So this is a regular client on any computer. I'm going to configure this and run this and remotely administer it. Here's my server. If I right click on it, I have all kinds of things I can do on here. I can create a new virtual machine, resources pools we probably won't get into. But when it talked about, right from the console, it said, you really shouldn't shut it down from the console. You should use an administrative tool. This is it. This is where you click on shutdown. So you click on shutdown, and it says, are you sure you want to shut down? It talks about being in maintenance mode. We may talk about that later on. We can. No, I don't want to shut it down, in fact, but that's where you could. Or right click, I want to reboot it. So this, you actually have the whole power management. You can't power it on from here, because this has to connect to it to do things. So you still have to physically push the button on the server to turn it on. But again, you don't need a monitor for this at all. I do not know that. I don't know. Thinking probably not. Well, I don't know that. I can't say. Makes sense like it might. I don't know. But you can shut it down, and all you have to do is walk up to the machine and put the power button on, and then you can connect to it. You would probably have a static address because you're not going to be wanting to guess what the IP address is of the day. But again, we're going to use all DHCP for right now because it doesn't matter what the address is. So there's some basic things here. On the file menu, you can deploy OVF templates, export, which is basically, it's a pre-packaged device. So you're going to say, I want to run this. And then there's the virtual appliance marketplace. So I can click on that, and it's going to be, you know, these are all kinds of things that are built already that you can just download and install as an appliance. And there's just all kinds of stuff out there. 1,092 solutions are sitting out there. There are firewalls, they can be file servers, they can be NAS storage, they can be all kinds of appliances that are already built, and you just download. It's almost like an app, and it just plugs it right into your ESXi server for you. Some need to be licensed, some don't, so you have to watch that. Let's see what's under edit. This is the client settings. So if I had a client, the client is what's running on top of there. So like my Windows Server 2008 or Windows 7 running on top of that, that's where we're going to do other things later on. Inventory, I have some host options here as well. You know, I can shut down the host and reboot the host. A lot of the things that we're used to being under on the VMware Workstation software, being under the VM menu, is being found under the host menu. Some administration plugins. So that's about it. Then we have the actual machine itself. So right now you can see that I have an ESXi server, and that's the box right here. And I can manage multiple of them, and we'll maybe look at that later on. But right to begin with, I think they do a fantastic job of explaining things. So right on the main screen it says, what is a host? A host is a computer that uses virtualization software such as ESX or ESXi to run virtual machines. So this is a host right now. This is my host. This is the box that you just built. And then here's a computer, which is the vSphere client, connecting to that host. On that host, I run multiple virtual machines. So they have words, they have pictures, and it's described very, very clearly. What's one of the first things that you want to do? Well, you actually have two basic things to start with. One is to go right to the VA marketplace, kind of like the Google store or the Apple store or whatever, the marketplace, and saying, you know, what do you want to build? I want a firewall. Click, you got a firewall. Or you can create a new virtual machine, and that's where we're going to go today as far as creating a new virtual machine. We should actually look at some of the virtual appliances, though. I'm going to write that down in my notes. You also have other tabs. So it tells you, you know, what things are, describes them very well, and gives you what the next steps are. Under summary, it gives you just a lot of general information about the physical machine. It tells you that you have 2 cores, you have this type of processor, the license evaluation mode, how many sockets, how many processors, how many cores, so on and so forth. Let's see here. It tells you all your storage over here. It tells your CPU usage, your memory usage. So right now I'm using 900, almost a gig of RAM out of my 8 gig total. So it shows you what the limit is right there. My data store, 95 gig of capacity, and this is my network connection. And again, making a new virtual machine, entering maintenance mode. These are some common commands that you might want to have. Here are the virtual machines that are running on this host. There are none. We didn't build any yet. But this is where they would all show up, and then we can manage those from here. Resource allocation, this is where we can say, you know what, this process can use this much of the CPU, so we can actually allocate things later on. Performance is pretty cool. It shows you lots of information, sometimes too much, but you can tell what's going to show, processor, hard drive, network throughput, or whatever. configuration is a huge part. This is equivalent to the control panel in Windows. This is your ESXi's control panels under configuration. And you have all kinds of stuff underneath here. It's broken up very, very nicely under hardware and software. I really do like that a lot. The first part is health status, and you can, break down, drill down and see, the status of everything. The overall status up here, if this is all you see, it says normal. It's gonna be the lowest level of anything. So if there's an error or a warning anywhere, it's going to show up there, and you can drill down to what it is. So if it's green and normal, then everything is going to be good. If something was wrong, you could sort of drill down, like I said, into what they would be potentially wrong. So that's just a health status. Processors is just information about the processors. Memory is just information again. Storage is very important in the hardware side because this is how we actually manage the hard drive. Again, if I walked up to the physical box and it's just like I want to copy a file onto here, you can't. You can't do anything from the console at all. So everything is done through here. If this is the hard drive on that server, in order to do anything with it, I right-click on it and I browse the data store. And now it brings up a Windows Explorer-ish kind of view. That's it. So there's nothing on that hard drive right now. It's one big empty hard drive. If I want to make a new folder on here, I basically have the functions of making a new folder, uploading files, downloading files, or moving a file to another location. So that's pretty much all the functions that you have. Just to show this right now, we're going to ultimately do this, but as long as we're in here, I'll do it right now. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it ISO images, because I want a place to store ISO images that I'm working with. And then I can go into this directory, so I double-click on ISO images, so I'm in the ISO images folder right now, and then I can upload a file or a folder. So if you have a folder, you could do all the files in there as well. I'm just going to do a single file. And I'm going to choose, I have an ISO image of Windows 7. And it's basically uploading it from my computer to that server. Depending on what your network speed is, it could be slow, fast, or whatever. It actually would be faster over physical machines on a real server. Because this is going through all kinds of virtual stuff, including a virtual hard drive. That's why this is taking a little while. I'll just minimize that and let it keep going. So that's my data store. It tells you how much I've used, how much is free, and so forth. This is also where you could add additional storage. You put another hard drive in, or you use some kind of network attached storage, like a NAS server. And you can point to that from here as well. And so there's a lot of configuration that you can do from here. This is just a quick overview. Don't oh my word, how can I remember all this? We'll get into the areas that you need to. Under networking, all kinds of networking stuff that you can do on here. VMware Workstation has a lot of networking. ESXi has 10 times more. You can create entire network infrastructures virtually within here. And if you have multiple physical NICs, they can be mapped to different virtual networks. Pretty impressive. They actually have a whole separate management network that's built into here. And so when some of the stuff, like I drew in those pictures in the background, like being transferred between devices or whatever, you can set up a separate network just for that kind of transferring, so that the data transferring from the from users, completely different network. And so you get the full bandwidth of whatever you're going to be working with. So pretty impressive things you can do. We're going to keep it very simple. Just use the one NIC and one network. There's lots of things you can do there. Storage adapters, mainly used when you're working with network attached storage. You need different iSCSI adapters and so forth. Network adapters, again, if you're managing these, if you had multiple NICs, adding an additional one. Advanced settings, I don't do anything with, and then power management, don't do a whole lot with. The software side, the biggest thing is the license features. The licensing is, this is my evaluation mode, and these are all the features that I have enabled. So there's 64-way virtual symmetric multiple processing. The vCenter agent, the vShield, and there's just all these names on here of all the different features that we have. This is where you manage your licensing. If you click on Edit, you assign a new key, and if you entered a key here, either the hypervisor key or whatever you purchased, then just those features would be available on that server from then on. I'm going to cancel on. So licensing is what that is. Time configuration, we might want to actually change that, because right now it thinks it's at 10 to 5 in the morning. To do this is a little bit cumbersome, and I think they're getting better on this. It's knowing where and how to manage things. Sometimes you have an edit button like in here. Sometimes you have a properties button down here. In this case, the properties button. So like where you click is not very consistent, or sometimes it's properties, sometimes it's edit, sometimes it's configure, so even the naming of it. So that's probably one of the bigger challenges, is knowing where to click on things. So if I click on properties, you know, it thinks it's 4:52 a.m. Let's make that, what is it, 10:52 a.m. And if I click OK, and I think that should be a little better. I'm doing everything else right. That should be fine. It does support network time protocol. So if you have a network time server, it could go out there and make sure it's always up to date that way. We're not going to worry about that right now. Was your time right, or was your time off as well? Was it off? Okay. DNS and routing, a lot of this stuff we're not going to go through, but this is where, you know, you can have a different DNS server. Maybe you want to point it to your Windows server, which is managing DNS or whatever. Authentication, virtual machine, startup and shutdown. You can have delays on them. You can actually launch everything as like a suite. Say, I want all these things to start, but you know what? I need my domain controller to launch before my email does, because I need it to, you know, actually log into something. So you can put delay timers on there. So when you do bring it up, it'll bring them all up automatically, but sort of sequence them for you. Nothing really else exciting. So the biggest things really are dealing with storage, because that's how we get stuff on and off our server. And then licensing would be important as well. Taking back at our storage, let's take a look at this, and it looks like it's finished uploading, and there's my file. So that's just a way of putting files up on the server. Moving along, we also have local users and groups. As you can see, we really only have one real user. It's called root. It's the administrator type account, and you can add from there. So right now you're logging in as root and password, but if you want each of your people to log in separately to administer this, like if I want to know that Paul is administering this, I'd create another account. I can just right click on here, click add. Login name would be Paul. Username and user ID is optional. And then let's see, just type in password. What groups you're going to be part of. And I thought I could make myself part of the administrators group. Let's see, edit. I think it's showing up. Yeah, this should be, I have to remember. I have to look back at that again. Events are just purely events, what's going on. You know, it couldn't connect to a gateway for whatever reason. I'm not sure why not. And just a lot of informational things. It's just like Windows event viewer. And then different permissions. Here's the different permissions. Oh, that's where I'd actually do it for giving Paul access to things. Okay. So that's a quick overview of the vSphere client of showing where things are. It is a little tricky remembering where things are though, so don't get overwhelmed. At this, any user, well, any user that you want to do anything with. So they could do specific things like start or stop a virtual machine, or they can create new virtual machines, and that's where the permissions come in. And I'm not real strong on that part. I haven't done a ton of that, but this is where the permissions would be. So here's the user group, so I'm going to add a permission, and this is where I would find Paul. So I'm adding Paul, and I want Paul to be able to have administrator access, which is do everything. So Paul can work with alarms, the data center, the data store, can work with permissions themselves, and then I click OK. So if I logged in as Paul right now, I'm able to do all the same stuff. I've actually done this at home. I set up my son's, there's a Minecraft server that they built on my ESXi server, and I gave them permissions just to that Minecraft server, so they can't like take everything else down or create additional ones or start or stop or anything, but they have full rights to that machine, so they can configure it and they can start and stop it, and that's pretty much it. How old are they? 15 and 17. Yeah. But it's actually very educational for them, working with networking, especially in the networking side of just how to get things to work. And I don't quite get the game itself, but they have to download mods and apply things. But the biggest thing is sharing and even create a virtual machine. They did it all. You know, I gave them, here's your space, you build it, and so give them some experience. We're gonna put a virtual machine on the server now. So I'm gonna get, I know it's about break time and you're like anxious to take a break or anxious to go home, either way. But I do want to get this installed and I want to get the process started first. So what we're gonna do is actually create a Windows 7 virtual machine on our new server that we just created. So we want to have this running out there. So again, just sort of watch me to begin with and take notes, and then, you know, then get it started and then take a break. So over here under getting started, I can click on create a new virtual machine. And there's many different places of doing this, by the way. I can do it right from here. I can do it under virtual machines and click right click new virtual machine. I can go up to file, new virtual machine. You know, so I mean, they're just begging to create a new virtual machine. You know, if there's a screen, you can probably create a virtual machine from there. So I'm going back into the home again. Oh, I don't want to go home. File new, didn't want to do that. Inventory, there we go. New virtual machine, wherever you get from. And now it's going to be very, very similar in regards to...
So you're not on the getting started tab?
It can be anywhere. You can do it from the Getting Started tab. Getting Started. Okay, I'll do it from the Getting Started tab. Okay, create a new virtual machine. You get to the same place. And we do, and we're going to get to that. That's an issue later on, which is workable. Yes, so this is very similar now then to VMware Workstation. Do you want the typical, like, let me just figure everything out for you, do custom? I'm just going to choose custom. In fact, here it even shows you, these are the things I want to ask you, and these are the things I want to ask you. Not that we change them, but just so you can see them. So I'm going to click next, and again, think of, we're building a box. We're thinking of hardware again. I want to build a Windows 7 computer. I'm going to the store. I'm pulling things off the shelf. So the first thing is, what are you going to name this thing? Well, I'm going to call it Windows 7. And I'm going to call it -1, just because who knows if I make another one. So Windows 7-1. Now it doesn't necessarily ask me where to put it, like as far as what drive or whatever. All it's giving me is a data store. And I only have one data store, so this is the only place I can put it. Now, if I had multiple data stores, like especially if it's a network attached storage, I might want to put it there. But now it's going to be creating a folder called this automatically. So it sort of automates that whole process. Whatever you name your virtual machine is the folder it's going to end up putting it in on that data store. So that's the only one that there is. You just click next. Okay, this host or cluster supports more than one VMware virtual machine version. Do you want it to be version 4, 7, or 8? Well, obviously 8 is the highest, but this is equivalent to VMware Workstation 8. And you're saying, aren't we a 9? That's okay. This is ESXi. This is separate. This is not trying to be compatible with that. We're just going to make it virtual machine version 8. So we're going to be okay. Honestly, it's going to work. Click next on there, and now it's going to say what operating system do you want to put on here, and it only gives me Windows, Linux, and other. Under the the Windows world, it gives me obviously all the versions of Windows, and I'm going to be choosing Windows 7 32-bit. I think it's 32-bit.
Yeah.
Okay, and I click next. It's going to ask me the number of processors, but it's more specific than VMware Workstation. VMware Workstation says number of processors. This actually says number of sockets and number of cores per socket. So you could actually have 2, 2, or 1, 2, 2, 1, or whatever. But keep it as 1. We're going to be fine for Windows 7. And again, we're just building the machine. It's going to recommend a gig of RAM. Now remember, we're only using the virtual world, so we only have 8 to work with. And we're going to give it a gig this time, but you have to be very careful because we only have 8 to work with. Networking, we don't have that whole bridge natting options or host only. We don't have that. This is different. This is going to say what physical adapter is going to go to. Everything is bridged in ESXi. Everything is real out there. There is no natting in ESXi. It's not even possible. If you wanted to NAT, you'd actually have to create your own virtual network and then create a NAT device and put it in there, almost like putting a router in there. You have to build a router appliance which will do natting for you. So there's no natting that's going to happen for you. You click next. This is your hard drive controller. You want Windows 7 to have what? It doesn't make any difference. It's just a client at this point. You want that Windows 7 to have a hard drive. Yes, I do. And how big do you want that to be? And it defaults to 24 gigs. I don't know. That's fine. Now, this is going to be the opposite of how VMware Workstation does. When you're in VMware Workstation, and you say 10 gig, 100 gig, or whatever, and then it's going to make it just as small as possible, just what's required, and then expand as required. That's the default. There's a checkbox though in VMware Workstation that says allocate all the disk space now. So if you had 20 gigs of disk space, you said allocate all the disk space now, it would in fact allocate 20 gigs of disk space at that moment. By default, that's what this is doing. That's what's called thick provisioning. And now that's kind of a big term. All it means is allocating the space now. So if I put 24 gigs, it's going to take 24 gigs of my 100 gig disk drive and allocate it right here and now for this drive. They think that you're running an ESXi server world. They think that you're going to want performance. You're not looking at VMware Workstation where it's just like, oh, it's just a test environment. These are real production things. You're going to want to have that pre-allocated. Now we're not going to in this case. We're going to choose thin provisioning, which is going back to the give me the space as I need it. There's two thick provisionings. There's the lazy and the eager. What's that?
Leaving your trailing zeros?
Thick provisioning lazy, which means that I'm going to set up a 24 gig file and leave it there. The eager is going to say, I'm going to set the 24 gigs and I'm going to write zeros across the entire thing. So it's kind of like the quick format versus the non-quick format. Quick format's just as good, but it doesn't actually go through and write the entire disk out. Whereas if you uncheck the quick format, so it's sort of equivalent to the quick formatting, the not. But we're not going to do either. We're going to do thin provisioning because we really don't want to allocate a quarter of our drive to one operating system when it's only going to require 2 or 3 gigs or something. That's what we're talking about. The difference between like a quick format and a not quick format. Yes. So, you can take I'm going to format this 100 gig drive. You click quick format and it's just done. It's going to actually allocate it, but then if I, uncheck that, it'll actually take forever to format the drive. That's what the eager does. Okay. We're going to store this with the virtual machine. So we're going to put it all in that data store. Other situations, we might actually want to put the virtual hard drives on another place. Maybe that would be optimized for high-speed data storage and that kind of stuff. So in this case, you don't have to keep the virtual machine configuration files with the data. They can be separate. We're going to put them together right now just to make it nice and easy. And I click next. What kind of drive do you want it to be? SCSI is fine. And now this is your configuration. So now you created a virtual machine. Right, here's your little virtual machine. It says Windows 7 up there. So I can click on it, and now it brings me to this screen, which is really cool because now it says, what's a virtual machine? And so now it gives you the same picture, but now it's highlighting this area. This is a virtual machine. It runs on your host. It's a software computer that, like a physical computer, runs an operating system and applications. Because every virtual machine is an isolated computer, you can use virtual machines as desktop, workstation, testing environments, and so on. What might you want to do with this virtual machine? You either want to turn it on or you want to edit it. So it's right there, very basic, right out there for you. What if I powered it on right now? Why not? I don't have anything to drive. Right. So right now it would boot and it would come and say, I don't have an operating system. Well, didn't I build a Windows 7? No. We built a box. We have a hardware box that's optimized for a Windows 7 configuration, but we haven't put an operating system on there. So now, again, this is very similar to VMware Workstation. I click Edit the Virtual Machine Settings, and it brings me to something very similar to VMware Workstation settings as well. I have a CD-ROM drive. I click on this. And now we have a couple more options, though. One is the client device. To connect to this device, you must power on the virtual machine, then click connect, whatever. But basically, this is saying that I can put a DVD in my computer right now of Windows 7, and this would pick it up. And so I wouldn't have to do that. Now, that'd be installing an operating system across the network, which can be a little slow on DVDs, whatever. So instead, I'm going to be pointed to a data store. Or I should back up. Going to the host device, I could actually walk up to the server and put the Windows 7 CD into the server's CD-ROM drive. Even faster yet is using an ISO file on the data store. So now it's going to look on that server. So I'm going to look under the data store, and there's an ISO images folder, and there's an ISO image.
I don't have an ISO image.
We did that before. I was showing you, but I'll let you catch up on that. And so now I have this in here. Now, one other thing that's done by default is it's not connected to power on. So even if you did all this and you powered it on, it's not connected. So you do have to check this box as well. So I want to connect this virtual CD-ROM drive to my new virtual machine, pointing to this Windows 7 ISO image, and then after all that I can click OK. Once I have this all edited and configured the way that I want, then I can power on the virtual machine. On the bottom it tells me that it's powering it on. Now you can see my basic tasks have switched. Now either you can power off the virtual machine, I can suspend the virtual machine, or I can still edit the virtual machine. But those are my new functions for here. While this is doing its thing, I'm going to go through some of these tabs across the top. First is the summary, and it tells me all about this machine. So it tells me that I have one CPU of 1 gig of memory, and I have a 25 gig hard drive. That's pretty much what it's telling me. Performance, this is the performance of this virtual machine, and it's not available yet, probably because it's still not booting. Here's different events. Just power it on. This is the console of that window, of that server. So that's your console of it. This is how you access it, is through vSphere client and going to the console of that. Now I'll show you, there's actually two ways of getting to the console. This is one way by hitting the console tab. This isn't bad just because it's in a window this way. Let me just click next while I'm waiting on this. Click next and install now. Let that go while I'm working with this. The other way to do this is to, if you right click on the virtual machine itself, you can open a console window. What's nice about that is it's its own floating window, and you can put it on a different screen. You can resize it a lot better than the other window, and you can still do other things. So like, I'm just going to slide this over here, and now I can go to permissions while I'm still looking at what the server is doing. So I prefer that method of right-clicking and choosing Open Console, and then you can see this. Let me just continue this. Control-Alt is going to get you out of these windows because they keep getting stuck in the windows. I'm going to do a custom install on a new drive. And now it's going to do its thing, and this is where it takes a while, right? So why do I have to watch this? I don't need to watch this, so I can just close this window, and I'm just working with the rest of the machine, so it's going to just do its own thing. If I go back to the main server right now, I'm to the actual host right now, and I look at performance, you should probably see some performance increases. Come on. Refresh. Oh, come on.
Alright, since
I'll have to look at that later on.
on that, how do we get the ISO image over to...
How you get the ISO image over there? So on your host computer, kind of go this again, under configuration, we spend a ton of time on the configuration tab. Under storage, you click on the storage under hardware, and we have a data store. So we right click on the data store and we browse. There isn't a better way of doing this. I wish there was a little bit better. It's sort of like kind of buried of how to get there. You browse the data store. The first thing you can do is make a new folder by clicking this little icon, make a new folder. I'll even call it new folder. To get rid of things, you just click on them and then hit the little X for delete. And so now I can delete the new folder. I go to the ISO images folder.
Can't open it if there's nothing.
Right.
Alright.
There's nothing in it. And then you want to upload. There's a little upload. So either you can right click and make a new folder, or you can click upload, and then you can upload a file, and then you browse for a local file to put up there. So if you have a Windows 7 ISO somewhere, which you should have, or if you don't, put a Windows Server 2008 ISO out there, put Windows XP out there, just put some kind of ISO out there to install.
Alright.
And what's nice about, I don't want to open
It says if a
cancel.
file or folder in the target location is the same name. Oh, yeah.
It's just a warning saying that if it's the same name, it's going to overwrite it. What's nice about that right now, so right now I have Windows 7 installing. Well, you know what? I can just close vSphere client. Doesn't matter. It's the client. It's still doing it on my server, wherever it's going to be doing. It's just doing its thing, and I can. So I'm not locked into this. So at any time I can go to a different computer and say, you know, what's the status of that Windows 7 install doing? So I launched my vSphere client. I'm going to log in as Paul this time. I'm not expecting that you do the user thing by any means. That's like way beyond the scope of what we're talking about, but I just want you to get the server and a client installed is what my primary goals are. It says it's connecting to the server. Reminds me that I'm running evaluation mode. I have a little plus sign up here. I can expand this way and see which ones are running or which ones I have under here. or I can click on the virtual machines tab up on top, either way. And you can sort of see all the stuff that's going on. So right now it's actually using 98% of that gig of RAM in Windows 7. If I want to view the console, anywhere where you see the VM, you just right click on it, and then you can click on Open Console. So you can do it from there, right click Open Console from here, wherever it's going to be. And in this case, it copied all the files, but it's still expanding. That'll probably be a while. Again, why should I look at it? Just close the window, and I can, log on my client, and it's still running on its server. So my computer has absolutely nothing to do with what's going on that server. So once you get that far, once you get the start of the installation of Windows 7 on a computer, go and take a break, because it's going to take a long time. Because again, we created a virtual Windows 7 sitting on top of a virtual ESXi, sitting on VMware Workstation 8, sitting on top of Windows 7. Well, why don't we just use the regular Windows 7 to begin with? Because it wouldn't be as much fun.
Exactly.
So I typed in Paul for the previous screen. I didn't record that here. But then putting password for password.
18.
Product key. I don't need a product key. Ask me later. I don't really care about updates right now. Time zone. Central time.
It's close.
4:54 p.m. 10:54 a.m. And this would be a work network. And so now at this point, this Windows 7 machine is sitting on the school's network. I mean, it's going to look like a Windows. It's going to look just like my laptop out there. So it's just like any other machine, but it's running on an ESXi server. You can take snapshots just like it.
Snapshot with a snapshot.
So again, this is just the client software looking at my server. This is not my server directly. I'm just looking at the server right now. It's preparing my desktop for the first time. And it's up and running. I, at this point, can shut down my virtual machine. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Oh well, we'll do it later. You also install VMware tools pretty much the same way. And I was going to do the tools before I do the snapshot, but oh well. So it's going to shut down the machine. And it's just closed. You know it's not running because you can see that it's not running. It says it's powered off. The little green arrow's not there, so it shuts down pretty quickly. But at this point, if I want to take a snapshot, I can right-click on it. I do a lot of right-clicking. It's kind of nice to work through. Then you take a snapshot. Take a snapshot.
Did you want us to go to BNPS and then install it?
Yes, I will. And I'll show that to you in a second, too, because where the menus are a little bit weird. So I took a snapshot of it. And if I right-click on it, I can go to Snapshot Manager. And that's going to look somewhat similar to VMware Workstation. It's a little bit different format, but it's going to work out the same way. The same thing is going to tier down. It's going to be hierarchical. So if I kept working off the base image, it's going to keep going down as a single layer. If I branched off, it'll show the branches. I can delete any one. I can go to a specific snapshot or whatever. So I'm going to close that. Now I'm going to power on my virtual machine again. Right-click, power on. And if I want to view that, right-click, open the console, and then I can actually watch it boot. And this is, again, just a remote console to my virtual machine. It's all running over there on the server. So while this is running up here, let me go ahead and log in. You can run VMware tools with these applications as well. Control Alt goes up to VM, and then I go down to guest, and that's, may not be a real obvious place to look, but it's under VM and then under guest, and then you can install or upgrade the VMware tools. And it says you should do it. It's going to greatly enhance the graphics and mouse performance. Most of the time, the stuff that you're going to be installing here is not meant to be interactive. It in itself would be a server that you're putting out there. A Windows server or a mail server or a database server or something like that. This is not something typically that I'll be running Windows from, where I constantly log into it and do a remote desktop type thing to control it and do applications. Typically, you certainly can. It's all typically meant for back-end server type things. When it comes up, it's going to do the same thing as it does in a VMware Workstation. It's going to mount essentially a virtual CD-ROM drive. You run the setup program, and it's going to install VMware tools for you.
Man, is this thing cool.
Because ESXi is so small and so light, it really is amazing of how well virtual machines run, even on a basic system. Like I talked about, I have a system at home. It's a very basic computer, very similar to what your desktop, what your classroom's computers are, and the virtual machines run very, very effectively on there. And now VMware Tools installed. Well, I'm going to have it installed. I just choose typical. Yep. Just choose typical. Yes.
Can you start it shutting down? Can you take a
Snapshot while it's running? Yes, you can. I still prefer taking snapshots when they're down, though. It's just a cleaner snapshot, and then even if I move it to a different machine, it's going to work just really, really well. It takes an extra minute to do it. Obviously, on servers that you can bring down, you can certainly take a snapshot while it's running. And that's as of that moment then. It does in the background, so it doesn't interfere with the server processes, so it's just going to take a snapshot and then record all that. If I was going to do anything on a server, like maintenance or updates or whatever, I would certainly take a snapshot first, even if it was running. Just get that snapshot so I can always revert back to that snapshot point.
Once our Windows 7 is up, right down, take a snapshot.
I would still suggest that. Whenever possible or whenever convenient, not possible, whenever convenient, I'd be taking a snapshot when it's turned off.
attention to your
So now it's done. I click finish. It wants to restart. I'm going to say no for restarting because I'm actually just going to shut it down. Because if it restarts, it's going to bring me back up. I want to shut it down. I'm going to take another snapshot, and then I can bring it back up. Okay, so I'm going to right click on here, snapshot, take a snapshot, base image with VM tools. If I wanted to, then I could take a look at my snapshot manager. I could actually delete my base image, because I really wouldn't need that.
Take a snapshot of it, pull it, show the screen, or regular VM, or black and gray. How do
I don't know.
This is black.
Oh yeah, no. Then you can close that screen. If it's just black, it's not going to show that other settings screen. The icon will show whether it's running or not. So here it's removing the snapshot. It's a little bit more cumbersome. It's only 25% done. Just let that sit. And everything is services based. I don't have to keep windows open. If I say take a snapshot, or if I say shut down, or whatever, it's sending commands to everything. So even right now, if I close this client, it's not going to do anything for the snapshot because that's all being done on the server. The client is just sending a command or request to shut down, to take a snapshot, to restart, to whatever. And so it's not requiring the client interaction at all. I just need to send the request to there.
So basically the server's select because everything's in line on the actual box. This is just the graphical interface that's...
No, because there's not even much that you could do command line on the box. You need to have this remote management tool to do this. I'm just saying it's a true client-server environment. The client is sending the server a request, and the server is processing that request. Nothing to do with my client. I can turn off my client while it's doing the snapshot and everything. The snapshot's already been initiated. Excuse me, and it's going to be taken care of. There's one last thing I want to show you today. I know you're probably completely overwhelmed. Are you overwhelmed? No? A little bit? Kind of? I just want to show you another interactions to this. So right now, this is the vSphere client. This is primarily we'll be working with things. However, because all the VMware stuff is together, there is an integration between VMware Workstation and the server. I'm going to close my client. And I'm going to open up a new window for VMware Workstation just so that it looks like it's a clean, separate thing rather than my server running over there. So my ESXi server is running in the back. I'm just opening up another instance of VMware Workstation. So here's VMware Workstation. If I go under File,
So you're opening up VM Workstation from our local machine?
Yep, from your local machine. You're just going to open up VMware Workstation right now. Yep. If you go to File, if you notice down, we usually do like File Open or a new virtual machine or whatever. You also have a Connect to Server. So File, Connect to Server. If you click on that, you have something similar to the vSphere client login. It's asking for the server name. Now we don't have DNS on there right now, so we're going to use 172.16.193.47. That's mine. Do not use that because I don't want you logging onto mine. But point to your server, and I'm going to log in as root with password. So again, from VMware Workstation 9, I can do a server, type in your server IP address, and then root and password. Okay. Under File, Connect to Server.
So what happens if you shut down your ESXi server and you have virtual machines running on that server? Will it systematically shut them down?
Not systematically.
But if you just, fall up the top.
Yes. That is why, and I'll even show that to you. Let me just do this first, and then I'll come back to that. Excellent question. I'll show you what it looks like on the server when you try to do that. Okay. So connect to the server. Everybody get that? And then you type in the IP address 172.16.193.47. It is root and password. Connect anyway. And I don't remember the host. Now you have all the virtual machines that are on there. So it shows you some information, like the CPU usage. So it's using very, very little of it. Of the memory used right now, I'm only using a gig of my 8 gigs. And right now I'm using 8.7 gig of my 100 gig disk space on there. But from here, you do have some options. You can power it on, or you can open it. If you click Open, it's going to look just like a local VM. So you have the same settings over here. You can edit the virtual machine settings, but all these are actually on the server. You can also power on the virtual machine from here. And what's nice about that is it has your typical VMware Workstation window at that point. You can do Control-Alt-Enter to be full screen. You can do all the same things that you can in VMware Workstation. You don't have all the capabilities as a vSphere client. You have all the capabilities with the virtual machine that you can, but the host server, you don't have all the capabilities. You can't do any networking stuff on there, any storage stuff on there, any licensing stuff on there. But you can actually create and run and modify virtual machines. This is just considered another instance or another connection. I don't want to minimize that. I just wanted to put it into a window. So here's my Windows 7. At the same time, I could be launching my client, vSphere client. Let me go ahead and log in. Okay, come on here. Too many windows here. Suspending.
Paul, are those independent of each other, or?
They're both looking at the same thing. I must have hit pause somewhere. So it's going to suspend the virtual machine. Which I didn't want to do. Absolutely. If John was remotely accessing this Windows 7 computer, then the administrator or anybody else can open the console and completely dual interact or whatever. So in fact, if I right click in here and open the console, it should tell me that I don't have a connection. So let me power it on. Okay, so now it's been paused. So let me power it back on. And in VMware, this is VMware Workstation, and this is the vSphere client. Come on. I want to type. It's pretty slow. And even vSphere client will tell you that the number of active connections has changed. There are now 2 active connections to this console. So 3, 4, 5, or whatever. So it's actually going to tell you that. And as I interact with one, it's doing the exact same thing on the other. So if I click login, so it's 2 views of the same machine.
Wow. You're working like with your, say you got 5 or 6 virtual machines on your
Oh God, this thing is so slow.
if you ever gotta shut that down, you probably, place would look would be in the virtual machines, you have to make sure they're all powered.
Correct. In fact, right now, if I want to power this off, so this is a running virtual machine, I right click on here and I say shut down, and it says you're not in maintenance mode. You really should be in maintenance mode. So are you sure you want to shut down? So if I click yes, it's just going to power them off. Not gracefully, just power them off. So say, you know what, I really should be in maintenance mode. So that's where you right click on here and you say enter maintenance mode. And it's going to say a host in maintenance mode does not perform any virtual machine functions. To complete entry into maintenance mode, all virtual machines must be shut down. Do you want the selected host to enter maintenance mode? You say yes, and it says there's something running. You can't do that. So you'd have to go long way to accidentally shut the thing off, because it's going to say no, you can't do that. You want to shut this down, then you should enter maintenance mode, because especially when you have that whole pool type of things, you don't want anything thinking that it's still there, that I could go over to it. So it actually says, hey, you know, I'm not available right now, you know, don't count me as anything, and then you can shut down very nicely. So that's the best way. When you're done, then you just take yourself out of maintenance mode, and then you're in regular state again. So that's pretty basic. And again, that's more advanced. You know, I'm telling you all this advanced stuff. Working with VMware Workstation, which is pretty cool also, is that say I have, let's make sure I'm doing this right. Yeah. So right now this running virtual machine, I'm just going to close the window. It doesn't close the machine. I'm just closing the window to it. I have, you know, whatever I want to do to this host. I can right click, let's see, where can I go? Oh, File, New Virtual Machine. And if I make a new virtual machine, like another Windows 7 or Server 2008, I can do it on this computer, because it's VMware Workstation, that's a local one. Or I can create it on the server. So right from VMware Workstation, I could, in fact, create a virtual machine out to the server. Another nice function or feature is you can open up a existing virtual machine. Now, this is all VMware Workstation right now. So VMware Workstation, I'm doing File, Open. And it shouldn't be this painful. Come on.
Sounds a little painful. I'm still expanding Windows files.
Machines from the server.
What's that?
Painful.
The machines from the server.
VMware Workstation doesn't open them from the server. It is another way of viewing and accessing them. So, say I want to open up a virtual machine. So I go to my D drive, I go into virtual machines, and I'll just take a server, server 1. I have a Windows server. I'll do server, why not? So this is a regular Windows server that's virtualized on my computer. What you can do is you can go up to VM, up on the top, and you go to Manage, and you can click on Upload. Where do you want to upload that to? I want to upload it to my server. I click Next. The data store is in the data store. Click Finish. Now you send the next.
So that was your completed server.
Local VM thing. Failed. Cannot be found. Oh, that's okay. I should take this off here. I don't want to do this. Let's just try to do that whole thing.
We could run that version instead of setting up Windows 7.
You could.
Oh, when I tried to shut down my ESXi,
It should actually tell me something else. What's wrong with my server? It should actually, I should have actually given me a message saying that you're running VMware Workstation 9. Do you want 8? Do you want to downgrade the hardware compatibility? Why isn't this working? This has definitely worked before. But okay, go ahead, Bill.
I shut down my Windows 7 machine on my ESX server. Now that I tried to do I went to the maintenance mode. Let me go to maintenance mode, find it, come out of maintenance mode, and then went through the shutdown.
No, keep it in maintenance mode to shut down.
Oh,
You want to be in maintenance mode while you're shutting down. So what you're sort of doing is, when you go into maintenance mode, you're saying, you know what, network, I'm not going to be available for a while. And that's just letting everybody know that you're not available so they get updated. Then you can shut down, do maintenance, coming back up, shut down, up, down, up, down. When you're completely set, then you take yourself out of maintenance mode and you say, you know what, I'm available for services now. Now, we're a single server ESXi network right now, so it really doesn't make much difference. But if there's more than one, they have to know what's available and what's not, so that every time that the server came up and down, it's not saying, oh, you're available, let me use you. No, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. So you stay in maintenance mode for all of your processes. Now, while it's in maintenance mode, you can't run a virtual machine, though. It won't let you start one. It won't even let you go in maintenance mode until you stop them all or migrate them off. So I just wanted to show that as ability of uploading, and it's not working right now. It's using another example, I guess. Not that you need to do that, but I'm just showing you that there's lots of different means of accessing and connecting or whatever. So.
well, I got an error. Well, the reason I was asking is because I got an error. It did that disconnected, and then in the vSphere client window, it says unable to read data from transport connection. That's what it's for. And now it's trying to attempt to reconnect. The vSphere client is attempting to reconnect automatically. The connection.
To your server or to the host?
I think to the server. I don't think.
Okay, let me come back and take a look at that. Okay, so let me just recap real quickly of reminding you of what we did do today. We discussed the overview of the server side of virtualization, where it fits. It's completely bare metal compared to relying on an operating system. It is its own operating system. We installed ESXi, and we managed ESXi using the vSphere client. With the vSphere client, allows us to do licensing, it allows us to do network addressing, it allows us to do storage devices, it allows us to do all of your configuration on that hardware, including user accounts and passwords and security and everything. You need to do all your management through this vSphere client. In addition, we in the data store, we reviewed of how we were supposed to upload and upload files to it if we wanted to, such as ISO images. If we're going to build machines out there, it's really nice to have the ISO images out there. So how to actually manipulate files out there, the vSphere server. Doing a quick review of that, if I look at the configuration right now, under storage, and I right click and I browse the data store, I now have this new Windows 7-1, which is a new virtual machine, and it has the same types of files that I would have working with VMware Workstation. So I mean, it does the same process as that goes. We created a virtual machine, Windows 7, went through that whole process. We installed VMware tools on that client, and then we also looked at that host just using VMware Workstation. We can use VMware Workstation to start and stop virtual machines, to edit them, to view the console screen, and we can have multiple consoles open at the same time. So that is the main part of today, and got sidetracked all over the place with other various things, but that was the core, so hopefully it brings it back together. Questions specifically on those topics or concepts to begin with, and then I'll go around and help with individual issues. Everybody get those points? Okay. How many think that's pretty cool stuff?
I think it's amazing.
I think it's amazing. I think it's really, really cool.
I think it'd be cooler if we could have done it on the base install instead of having to run it on this.
Instead of running a virtual machine? Yeah. I thought about that. The way of kind of doing that would be to just wipe out these computers
I'm down.
and have a really good ghost image of them. Short of actually swapping out all the hard drives, but that would, I don't know.
Can you just add another hardware to these machines that you can keep running?
Yeah, but every time you install an operating system, then the boot manager wants to update, and all of a sudden you have 3, 4, 5, 6 options that really don't exist, and it just gets a little weird that way. That's where removable hard drives are very nice. When we had them, we actually pulled out the hard drive and put a new drive in, and every got different drives. So there are advantages to that. So
We'll survive.
we'll see what other options we have. You know, if you have any good suggestions of external switchers for internal drives, you know, that might be. Do they make those? A Raspberry Pi?
Blueberry pie?
Okay. That's the new one. Yeah. Okay, that's all I have for you today then. So the rest of the day is just to play, practice, you know, it's just getting in and out of the vSphere client and just playing around with all the tabs. There's just a lot of tabs in there. And then being able to get an actual virtual machine installed. Okay, that's all I have.